Morgan was sure even the stink of Laddie Granbouche had mellowed. Laddie's tomb, a modest above-ground chamber built of red sandstone from the fabled hole-in-the-wall country, was disintegrating. Vandals, rigorous winters, and riding lawnmowers had taken their toll. Cracks spidered across the base, some wide enough for a man's fingers, and the mortar seal around the vault had dissolved. It was also sinking into the overwatered cemetery topsoil. Ever the newspaper man, Morgan kneeled close for a photo. Only Laddie's epitaph remained intriguingly proud. Laddie Granbouche, 1876 to 1969. Yesterday is history. Tomorrow is mystery. So before the tomb collapsed entirely, spilling what might be left of Laddie after 30 dead years, the Perry County Commissioners decided to rebuild it in a new section of Winchester's Pine Lawn Cemetery. Besides, it didn't take much to qualify as a tourist attraction in any small town, and Laddie was the closest thing to a celebrity in Winchester, Wyoming. It was a Saturday morning at the end of a long week. Morgan snapped a few pictures of her next-to-final resting place for next week's bullet before the cemetery caretaker started dismantling it. This was big news in a small town where no news was nothing new, and the editor always worked harder on slow news weeks, which was most. And although it was unlikely Laddie's bone dust would tell any new tales, a small cadre of curious forensic anthropologists under the renowned Dr. Sean Cowper of the University of South Florida hovered around Laddie's grave that morning to take measure of the old gal. A surgical mask hung around each of their necks as they prepared for the exhumation of Laddie's husk. Morgan zoomed in on a pretty grad student, one of Cowper's helpers. She seemed too young and full of life for the work of death. Under her Polar Tech pullover, earmuffs, and 2 pairs of rubber gloves, she resented the chill of Wyoming morning, even in June. Poor little Florida girl, Morgan thought. Her perky nose ran in the chilly morning, and she nibbled a glazed donut with the same ambivalent zeal the Donner Party approached lunch. Maybe it was her first exhumation, or maybe just her first Wyoming morning. Laddie died in her sleep on a hot summer night in 1969, a natural and unremarkable end for a living mystery. She'd lived alone as long as anyone could remember, holed up in her Riverstone mansion at La Plata Ranch beneath the sheltering blood-red rimrock in the Badlands north of Winchester. She wasn't a recluse, but she loved being alone. And if the myth she cultivated in the last half of her long life were authentic, and many people believed it was, she might have preferred the sanctuary of open spaces. At any rate, she lay in her 4-poster bed for 2 days before the county agent found her. If the truth be known, he never actually saw Laddie's putrefying remains. He merely smelled them from the front porch and radioed the sheriff from his truck. Laddie was 93 years old, and her body just gave out. She had lived passionately and loved passionately, if the stories were true. She was one of the West's most legendary women, if the stories were true. Before she really died, she was fond of saying she'd already died 6 times, if the stories were true. But nobody really knew if the stories were true. Now, sanctioned by history and a country judge, Dr. Cowper and his forensic sleuths hoped to collect post-mortem evidence to prove or disprove the possibility that Laddie Granbouche was, as she long claimed, the infamous mistress of an equally infamous desperado. Dawn unfolded warm. Morgan sipped tepid convenience store coffee from a styrofoam cup and watched Cowper's young scientists prepare the machinery of their curiosity. Video and still cameras, high-wattage lights, a small gas-powered generator, mobile lab equipment, laptop computers, surgical instruments, and garden tools. A lone gravedigger pounded his pry bar into the powdery mortar between Laddie's sandstone blocks, peeling them away one by one and setting them gently aside in the dewy grass. A plastic grocery sack fluttered in the highest branches of an old cottonwood, like a sentry angel keeping watch over the whole affair. The only sounds of the morning were the metallic clang of the gravedigger's spike, a meadowlark warbling somewhere in the cemetery, and the locust click.